Something rare is unfolding, and most people won't even notice it until they're already lost in it. March 25th marks the moment Mercury, the planet of thought, speech, and mental clarity, leaves the raw urgency of Aries and reverses itself into the deep, swirling waters of Pisces. This isn't just a mood shift. This is a full rewiring of how you perceive reality. And here's the truth no one tells you. Mercury retrograde in Pisces is one of the most confusing, misunderstood, and misleading transits in astrology. If you don't know what's happening, if you're not paying close attention, this shift will pull you under. You'll find yourself second-guessing every decision, misreading messages, resurrecting emotional stories from years ago, and wondering why nothing feels linear anymore. But for those who are awake, for those who understand how to navigate it, this retrograde is a rare gift. A portal, a window into the unseen that only opens for a short time, and only for those willing to leave behind logic and listen to something deeper. You've probably heard people joke about Mercury retrograde, text messages not sending, travel delays, exes returning, technology breaking down. But those surface-level glitches are just symptoms. What's really happening is energetic. It's subtle, but it changes everything. Mercury governs how we think, how we speak, how we process information, and when it enters retrograde motion, it turns its focus inward. In Aries, that retrograde brings frustration, misdirected action, and flared tempers. But in Pisces, it's a whole different game. This is when Mercury becomes less a messenger and more a mystic. Pisces isn't interested in facts. It cares about dreams, emotion, memory, soul. It doesn't speak in straight lines, it speaks in symbols. It rewinds you through emotional timelines. It dissolves the boundary between your mind and your spirit. And now that Mercury is retracing its steps into this oceanic space, it's not just asking you to slow down. It's inviting you to descend into the subconscious, into your inner world, into the dreams you haven't dared to decode until now. But don't be fooled. This isn't gentle energy. It can be disorienting, even destabilizing. You may feel like you're floating between timelines, questioning everything you once felt sure about. Emotions will surface that don't seem to have a clear source. Memories from years ago may reappear suddenly. You may find yourself forgetting names, misplacing objects, or spacing out mid-conversation. And yet, simultaneously, you may receive downloads of insights so profound they bring you to tears. This is not randomness, it's alchemy. And Mercury retrograde in Pisces is the invitation to work with it consciously, or get swept up in confusion without knowing why. The reason this is so important right now is because it's not going to wait for you. This shift is already in motion. Mercury only retrogrades into Pisces once every few years, and in this particular passage, it carries an extra weight. Why? Because we're nearing eclipse season. We're already in a year of karmic rearrangement, and this moment, it's the calm before the spiritual storm, the fog before the flash of realization. And if you learn how to read the signs during this window, if you attune to the frequency underneath your usual thoughts, you'll start to hear something different. A guidance you don't usually trust. A knowing you can't explain. That's your intuition coming online. That's the voice that Mercury in Pisces speaks through. This isn't about overthinking, it's about letting go. It's about learning to see what's not being said. The unspoken tension in a conversation. The emotion behind someone's words, the gut feeling that something isn't quite what it seems. Mercury in Pisces will teach you that intuition is a kind of intelligence, and during this retrograde, your access to it is amplified. But you can't force it. You can only receive it, and most people won't. Most people will keep pushing forward, trying to act as if everything's the same, wondering why their plans keep falling apart and their conversations keep spiraling into misunderstanding. Don't let that be you, because this Mercury retrograde is a moment of rare perception, a doorway between the rational and the esoteric, a time when your dreams can deliver more truth than your to-do list, and your emotions can reveal what logic has been trying to ignore. So let me be clear, this isn't something to fear, but it is something to respect. Mercury in Pisces doesn't move like Mercury in any other sign. It flows, it reflects, it dissolves. And if you try to box it in, to analyze it the way you usually would, you'll end up frustrated. But if you surrender to it, if you slow down, listen, and feel, you'll find that this retrograde carries wisdom that can't be explained, only experienced. What's coming next isn't about clarity through information, it's about clarity through intuition. And that clarity, it doesn't speak loud, it whispers. But when you hear it, it changes everything. You're not imagining it. Your thoughts really have felt heavier. Your emotions have gotten harder to name. And the people around you, they aren't hearing you the way they used to. Communication right now feels warped, like words aren't quite landing, or they're carrying double meanings. And that's exactly what Mercury retrograde in Pisces does. It doesn't just affect what you say, it distorts how it's received. Logic begins to dissolve. Boundaries between people blur. Conversations become layered with unspoken energy. And if you're not grounded in your own center, you'll start to pick up on feelings that don't even belong to you. This is especially true in your relationships. Not just romantic ones, but with friends, coworkers, family. Anywhere communication plays a role, the shift is happening. And while it might feel disorienting, this is actually an incredible opportunity if you understand what it's asking from you. Here's how it plays out. People start projecting more. They say one thing, but they mean another. Unspoken needs rise to the surface. Resentments leak out through passive comments. Or, in the quiet, you may realize how much you've been swallowing just to keep the peace. Mercury in Pisces brings emotional truth to the forefront, but it doesn't use direct language. It shows you through symbols, through sensations, through dreams that stay with you long after waking. And if you've been ignoring certain red flags in your relationships, this is the time they'll show up. Not as obvious confrontations, but as a growing sense that something isn't quite aligned. For some of you, this retrograde may highlight misunderstandings that have been building for weeks or even months. You might find yourself replaying old conversations, wondering what was really meant. Or maybe you're receiving a message from someone you haven't spoken to in a long time, and the feelings it stirs up aren't logical, but they're real. Don't dismiss these moments. Mercury retrograde in Pisces reaches backward not just in time, but in feeling. It reconnects you with versions of yourself you thought were long gone. It opens the door to emotional cleanup. And yes, it may bring someone back into your life, not always because they belong there, but because something unresolved needs to be cleared. This is why clarity is everything right now, but not the kind you find by analyzing or rationalizing. The clarity you need now is intuitive. It's found by slowing down and noticing the subtleties, the pause before someone answers, the tension behind a smile, the way your body reacts to a voice or a text message. These are your signals now. Mercury isn't speaking in straight lines, so you have to learn to read the curve. But let me be honest, that's easier said than done. Because most people will ignore this shift. They'll keep trying to communicate the way they always do, clear, fast, direct. And when things don't land, they'll get frustrated. They'll blame others. They'll push harder. Don't fall into that pattern. Because the truth is, Mercury retrograde in Pisces is giving you something rare, a deeper kind of understanding. It's asking you to feel before you speak, to sense rather than assume, to ask what's really going on beneath this moment. If you can do that, your relationships can be transformed, not just maintained. You'll notice that when you listen with your entire being, people open up in ways they never have before. Vulnerability becomes the new language. Silence becomes sacred. This is a time when healing can happen, not through confrontation, but through shared understanding. So if you've felt like your conversations have been missing something lately, if you've sensed a distance that isn't being acknowledged, lean into it. Don't rush to fix, don't rush to speak. Just be there with the discomfort. Mercury in Pisces wants to remind you that love, connection, and truth don't always sound perfect. Sometimes they sound like fumbling pauses. Sometimes they sound like tears. Sometimes they sound like nothing at all. And it's not just about interpersonal relationships. This retrograde is also about your relationship with yourself, the way you talk to yourself, the way you understand your own emotional landscape. What internal stories are you still living in? What narratives are you recycling that no longer reflect who you are? Mercury retrograde in Pisces is the moment to question those stories, not with your intellect, but with your intuition. Ask yourself, where have I been too hard on myself? Where have I silenced my own truth in order to make others comfortable? And most importantly, where do I need to forgive myself? Because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's the dream before the new beginning. And when Mercury is there retracing its steps, it's not just trying to confuse you, it's helping you release, to soften, to close a chapter emotionally, so that once it returns to Aries again, you can step forward with clarity. And yes, there may be a sense of longing during this time, a pull toward the past, a grief that rises without warning. Let it rise. Let yourself feel it, because what's surfacing now is not meant to haunt you, it's meant to free you. You are being given a window to emotionally integrate what you've been avoiding, to finally name what's been unspoken, to find peace in the feelings you've tried to outrun. But here's where it gets urgent. This isn't a window that stays open forever. By mid-April, Mercury will be direct again, and this entire fog will lift. The clarity will return, but the insights you gain now will be the ones that carry you forward. This is why ignoring this energy is the real risk. Not because it will hurt you, but because it could miss you. Because you could walk through this week unaware that the veil was thin, that your spirit was whispering, that your relationships were offering you a chance to deepen, to repair, to realign. And when that window closes, you'll feel it. The emotions will settle, the strange dreams will stop, life will resume. But if you didn't listen, if you didn't pause and reflect and feel, you'll wonder why certain relationships never quite clicked back into place, why something felt unfinished, why the opportunity passed. Don't let that be your story. This retrograde, especially in the emotional waters of Pisces, is not random. It's spiritual architecture. It's designed to help you remember what matters, reconnect where you've grown distant, and reclaim the parts of yourself you left behind in the noise. And it starts with this question: can you sit in the fog long enough to feel what's been calling you from beneath it? By now, you've probably noticed your dreams feel different. They linger longer. They carry more weight. You wake up and feel like something followed you out of sleep, like an echo of another world stayed with you. That's not your imagination. It's Mercury retrograde in Pisces opening the inner gates. Pisces is the sign of dreams, intuition, the unseen realms. And when Mercury, the planet of thought and communication, swims through these waters in retrograde motion, it doesn't just mess with your phone or delay your emails. It pulls you into your inner world, hard. And this is where the real messages start to come through. This is the forgotten side of Mercury retrograde no one talks about. Everyone focuses on tech malfunctions and misunderstandings. But the deeper truth is this: Mercury retrograde is one of the most spiritually active times in the year. And in Pisces, it becomes a psychic tuning fork. That's why now is the time to pay attention to your dreams, not just as random mental activity, but as sacred transmissions. Every image, every symbol, every strange emotion you can't explain, it all means something. Maybe it's a warning, maybe it's a glimpse of your future. Maybe it's your subconscious finally surfacing what your conscious mind has been too afraid to face. And this isn't something you want to ignore, because when Mercury is in Pisces and in retrograde, it's not just whispering, it's shouting through symbols. The language of the soul isn't linear, it speaks in metaphor, in déjà vu, in repeated numbers, strange songs, flashes of memory, and people who show up in your dreams even though you haven't thought of them in years. That's how the truth arrives now. Not logically, but spiritually. You may notice more synchronicities during this time. You may think about someone and they message you. You may hear the same phrase from 3 different people. You may see an animal, a number, a scene that feels charged, like it's trying to tell you something. It is. This is Mercury in Pisces, opening the symbolic layer of reality. And what's especially rare is that it's retrograde, meaning this isn't just about looking forward, it's about retrieving. You're being pulled into your personal archives, memories, past lives, old emotions, unresolved truths, and invited to reread them with new eyes. So if you've been feeling like the past is haunting you lately, there's a reason. But it's not punishment, it's reclamation. You're being shown what still holds power over you and given a chance to shift the story. Here's where the magic happens. When you work with this energy instead of resisting it, your inner world begins to align. You stop looking for answers outside yourself. You start receiving them from within. You trust your gut over Google. You understand that not everything has to make sense to be meaningful. That's the gateway Mercury retrograde in Pisces offers. But most people won't walk through it. They'll keep trying to figure it out intellectually. They'll shrug off the dreams. They'll ignore the signs. They'll drown out their intuition with noise. And when this transit ends, they'll miss the downloads that could have changed everything. Don't be one of them. There is gold here, but you have to mine it from the fog. And that means creating space, solitude, silence, journaling your dreams the moment you wake up, meditating on symbols, trusting what feels true even if it doesn't make immediate sense. If something keeps appearing to you during this time, an animal, a color, a recurring scene or word, look into it. Track it, let it become your teacher. The universe is speaking. But you must be willing to listen in its language, because here's the secret. Clarity doesn't always arrive as a thought. Sometimes it arrives as a dream. Sometimes it arrives as a chill down your spine, as a knowing in your belly, as a whisper in your sleep that you can't quite remember but can't quite forget either. That's what this week is about. Receiving the vision that doesn't come from the outside world, but from the deepest currents within you. A vision that may not make sense to others. A vision that doesn't follow logic, but a vision that's yours and only yours. This is your inner oracle awakening. This is Mercury opening a different kind of message, one only your soul can decode. And when this retrograde ends, you'll either carry those messages forward or wish you had listened while the veil was thin. So be still, be present, be brave enough to listen. Because the clearest answers don't always come from the loudest sources. They come from the quiet space inside you where the soul still remembers what the mind forgot. And this is your chance to remember. You don't need more information right now, you need transformation. And that's exactly what this Mercury retrograde in Pisces is offering you. But you have to work with it. This isn't a passive moment. It's an invitation into sacred stillness, into the kind of introspection that rewires your inner world. Because when Mercury goes retrograde in Pisces, your outer world won't give you the answers, but your soul will. So how do you use this energy? You begin by turning down the volume of everything else. Let go of your need to figure it out. This is not a season of strategy. It's a season of surrender. And in that surrender, paradoxically, is where clarity lives. Start here. Create intentional space. Time where you're not scrolling. Time where you're not solving problems or checking things off a list. Time where your only job is to listen. One of the most powerful ways to do this right now is to return to your dreams. Keep a notebook by your bed. As soon as you wake up, before your mind gets pulled into the world, write down anything you remember, even if it doesn't make sense. Especially if it doesn't make sense. You're not trying to make it logical, you're trying to receive the language of your subconscious. Calm your mind before bed. Say a quiet intention. Ask your higher self or your guides to speak clearly through your dreams. Then go to sleep not with anxiety, but with openness. And during the day, stay aware of the fog. It will try to confuse you. It will make you question yourself. And that's where most people panic. They start trying to force decisions, to make things happen. But that's not the way right now. Not with Mercury retrograde. Not with Pisces leading the way. Instead of control, this energy wants communion. Instead of rushing, it asks for reverence. So journal, not just your dreams, but your feelings. Ask yourself where you've been lying to yourself, where you've been avoiding discomfort, where you've numbed your intuition because it told you something you didn't want to hear. Clean your space, physically and energetically. Mercury retrograde loves when you recalibrate your surroundings. Open the windows, burn herbs, rearrange your altar or your room. As within, so without. Shift your environment and your inner world will begin shifting too. This is also a beautiful time to write the letters you'll never send. Letters to people you've loved, people who hurt you, people you've hurt. Even letters to versions of yourself you've outgrown. This is not about confrontation, it's about release. Pisces dissolves what is no longer needed, and Mercury gives you the words to do it. There's magic in the unseen. And Mercury in Pisces wants to make that magic visible. But here's the part most people skip. You have to act on what you receive. This isn't just about feeling more spiritual. It's about integrating it into how you live, speak, decide, relate. So if a dream shows you that a relationship has expired, honor that truth. If your intuition keeps nudging you to revisit a creative project, sit down and open the file. If you're being called to rest, to cry, do it. These small actions create momentum. And Mercury, even in retrograde, rewards movement that comes from soul alignment. But this window won't last forever. The insights coming to you now are time-sensitive. There's a spiritual scarcity here, not because it's fear-based, but because these downloads arrive when the veil is open, and the veil won't stay open forever. When Mercury goes direct again, everything speeds up. The fog lifts, but the clarity you were meant to gain may vanish if you didn't anchor it. So don't wait. Don't dismiss the intuitive hits. Don't convince yourself you'll journal tomorrow or meditate next weekend. Now is the time. This is your window to deepen, to listen, to recalibrate before the pace of the world pulls you back into its rhythm. And you don't want to wake up 2 weeks from now and realize you missed a turning point that could have changed everything. Because the truth is this, while most people are trying to control the chaos outside them, the few who slow down and turn inward will be the ones who emerge with clarity, vision, and peace. You don't need a breakthrough. You need a breakdown, the kind that reveals what's real and burns away the rest. That's what Mercury in Pisces offers. The kind of healing that doesn't happen in the spotlight, but in sacred solitude, in quiet epiphanies, in tears you cry alone that wash something clean inside you. So this week, as Mercury retraces its steps through the fog, let yourself go inward. Not because it's easy, but because it's sacred. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just another Mercury retrograde, it's a threshold. And while the rest of the world is busy brushing it off, calling it tech issues or communication glitches, you know the truth. This is sacred territory, a moment between moments, and what you do now will ripple through every part of your life long after Mercury goes direct. The world wants speed, but your soul is asking for silence. The world wants answers, but Mercury in Pisces is offering you something deeper, revelation. Right now, you are being asked to stop chasing clarity the way you've been taught to, through control, force, logic. And instead, you're being invited into something ancient, a remembering, a dissolving of all the noise that's kept you from hearing your inner voice. That's what Pisces is here for. It returns you to your source. Let this be your reminder. The fog isn't here to confuse you. It's here to slow you down long enough for you to actually feel, to notice, to finally listen. And that is a gift most people never receive because they don't stop long enough to accept it. But you're here, which means something in you already knows. This moment matters. Maybe you've been feeling lost. Maybe you've been trying to push your way forward only to be met with silence, setbacks, or strange emotional waves that make no sense. But what if that wasn't a sign that you're failing? What if it was a sign that something higher is working on you? You are not broken. You're being retuned. And this retrograde is part of that divine recalibration. So take a deep breath and slow down, intentionally. Let Mercury guide you inward. Let Pisces show you what you've missed. Let your dreams become your compass and your emotions become sacred messengers, not things to fix. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to be brave enough to feel what's rising. And if you're still watching, that means you already are. So honor that, be proud of that, and trust, truly trust, that everything you need is already within you. That Mercury retrograde didn't come to ruin your plans. It came to remind you of your power, not the kind that performs, the kind that knows. Let this retrograde be the one that changes everything. Not because something dramatic happened outside you, but because something shifted within you so deeply. The external world had no choice but to follow. Now is the time to listen. Now is the time to dream. Now is the time to remember. If this message resonated with you, subscribe for more esoteric guidance and cosmic insight. And if you've been receiving messages through your dreams, your body, or strange signs lately, share them in the comments. You never know who else might need to see them. Until next time, be gentle, stay open, and trust the fog. It's not here to blind you, it's here to reveal.